Right now, more movement from the Trump administration on the future of education. We're going to talk to one group aimed at keeping or helping to keep DEI in the classroom. Also, the ongoing tussle over tariffs is leading right to your wallet. Find out what our investigative team is doing to help you save a few bucks. And speaking of shopping, we're going to take a deep dive into the growing use AI has in helping us make smarter purchases. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite experts in to share their take on today's top stories, and we try to have a little bit of a good time as well. Well, let's get right to it. Last night, President Trump signed 7 new executive orders, all tied to education. One targets the federal government's process for deciding what colleges and universities can access billions of dollars in federal student loans and Pell Grants. Trump also signed an executive order aimed at bringing artificial intelligence into K through 12 schools. And a third order, the president threatened to cut off federal funding for schools that fail to disclose where their foreign money comes from. This comes ahead of the White House's imposing a deadline of today, asking states to promise to end DEI programs in K through 12 schools or risk losing their federal dollars. Earlier this month, the White House put out a memo citing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and said that any violation, including the use of diversity, equality, and inclusion programs to the advantage of one's race over another, is impermissible. And now local school districts are wondering what their next steps will be and where else critical funds could be coming from. Joining us now is Michael Tefelsky, interim deputy legal director for the Southern Poverty Law Center. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. First of all, this has to be tough for school districts, right? Trying to get a sense of all this, all these adjustments that have been handled down by the federal government. Talk to me about it.
Absolutely. We see attacks on public education happening from every direction right now. And the latest last night with numerous executive orders will further create more confusion and challenges for school districts across Georgia and across the country.
Let's talk about this DEI promise that's being asked for and how the Southern Poverty Law Center is getting involved in that.
Sure. So just to give a little background, on February 14th, the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, issued a Dear Colleague letter to school districts and state education associations across the country. And what that letter did is basically give districts their interpretation of Title VI. For folks at home, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, national origin, and also ensures that recipients of federal funding, like local school districts, comply with Title VI. What the Trump administration did in that letter is communicate a distorted analysis of what Title VI is. And it's important for folks to understand that a Dear Colleague letter is not the law. It does not circumvent the law, and it doesn't change the law. What it does is it gives the administration's interpretation of the law. And that interpretation, frankly, is wrong and incorrect, which is then creating much of this confusion among local school districts and states, and also why many states are rejecting the interpretation that the Trump administration is offering. So as part of that analysis, then the next event was that after the Dear Colleague letter was sent, the Trump administration communicated to local school districts and states that they would need to certify compliance with Title VI. And while that is common for school districts to do, they're required to certify compliance with Title VI and other civil rights statutes. What the Trump administration is trying to tack onto that is compliance with their false interpretation of Title VI. And that then is creating much of this confusion and problems for school districts who are now facing this very difficult decision of how to respond.
Can you talk a little bit more about the differences there? How do you know, you're saying the Trump administration is putting out something that's kind of skewed. Break that down for me a little bit.
Sure. So what the Trump administration is saying is that now initiatives to advance diversity, equity, inclusion in our schools are contrary to Title VI, that they would potentially violate Title VI. But that has not been the law in this country for decades since Title VI was passed. We know that schools can operate initiatives to encourage diversity, inclusion, equity in our schools, and that is actually lawful compliance with Title VI. And so that distortion of the law that's being communicated to school districts is creating many problems, and also with a goal of chilling school districts. So school districts are fearful that they're going to lose their federal funding, right? And so they are beginning to make decisions that are going to harm students out of fear. And so that is why we at SPLC are looking for ways to support communities, to support school districts, to support educators, to support families in fighting back, because we believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion are critical to ensuring that all children get the highest quality education in our communities.
All right, and quickly explain to me what you guys are putting into place to kind of help fight that.
Well, we are offering support so today is the deadline for districts to certify, and we can expect, and I believe all the districts across Georgia are going to sign the certification. The state of Georgia is going to certify, unlike other states and other districts in the country, which are fighting back. But what we want to communicate to communities too is that as you are starting to see programs or opportunities within your local schools that begin to be canceled or disappear, we want to hear about those, and we want to learn about them, and we want to provide support, whether that be legal assistance or other advocacy or other resources to help communities push back on these changes, because we know they are going to be harmful to our students. We know they're going to be harmful to our schools, and we know it's contrary to the law under federal civil rights laws.
Gotcha. All right, Michael Tefelsky, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and thanks so much for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. All right, let's take a look at our 7-day outlook for today, because we are anticipating more rain pushing into the forecast area. A couple thunderstorms could be around as well this afternoon, and where we have those thunderstorms developing could be some brief heavy rain coming down. Because of that, at 50% chance, temperatures a little bit lower this afternoon. 79 degrees, our forecast high temperature. Looking at 81 tomorrow with a lower threat for the rain, which means that it won't be as widespread. 30% chance, scattered showers, thunderstorms, mainly during the afternoon into early evening. 81 degrees for the high on Friday. Saturday, even lower. 20% chance for the rain to be around, so that's looking better for our weekend. 83 degrees will be the high temperature. I think we will get a little bit more in the way of sunshine. Looking at Sunday, partly sunny skies, 80 for the high. A front will move through on Saturday, drop that temperature down just a little bit. 78 on Monday, and then back to the mid 80s by the time we get to the middle of next week. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Right now, you're seeing the crowds inside of St. Peter's Basilica right there, which you see the people filing past the casket of Pope Francis. Had some rain there earlier, but folks are still piling right on in there. We've seen so many mourners that the officials at the Vatican said they had to keep the doors open all night due to higher than expected turnout there. They closed it for just 1 hour just to clean up the place just a little bit there. As the world prepares for Saturday's funeral for Pope Francis, we're learning more about the man being dubbed the People's Pope. Once again, we join NBC's Jay Gray live in Vatican City. Jay, thanks so much for joining us again this morning. And Pope Francis has been, we're really starting to learn at least who he is now with his final instructions for burial, right? Talk to us about it.
Yeah, no, Chesley, I think you're absolutely right. You know, most of his predecessors have been laid to rest inside St. Peter's Basilica, a beautiful, very stately building, dripping in tradition and the history of the Catholic Church. He was more of a common man, and he liked to make sure that the world knew that he respected and preferred to spend his time with his congregation, with those he ministered to, and really eschewed the trappings, the formal trappings of the papacy. In fact, he lived in just the apartment. He did not want the big, huge, ornate living quarters that most popes take. And so with his funeral, he won't be buried inside St. Peter's. He'll be at the Basilica of St. Mary Major. It is a more common church. It's a place where we haven't seen a pope buried since the 1600s. And what that will do, it will leave him with those that he, again, took the time to shepherd. But it will also, for the first time, give us the opportunity to see a motorcade carrying his casket from St. Peter's to St. Mary Major, and millions expected to line that path. It's about 20 or 30 minutes from here at the Vatican. And again, that will be his goodbye. He wanted to say a goodbye with the people, and that certainly will be what happens on Saturday.
We're hearing a lot about his connection to people. You think that's why we have this unprecedented turnout?
Oh, yeah, no question. They've said, the Vatican, that they will, as long as people are in line, they will stay open as long as they can for people to pass through. More than 68,000 yesterday. You mentioned it. They closed for just over an hour to kind of get things back in order, reopen. We had rain this morning, crowds still building. The line right now stretches well over a mile and will continue into the evening. We expect that they will again be open much later than expected tonight.
Have you had a chance to talk to some of the people waiting long? How have their emotions been? What have they been talking about?
Yeah, Chesley, it's interesting because you hear a lot of people talk about the idea that they thought perhaps he had turned the corner on Easter Sunday. He was out on the balcony. He rode in the Pope Mobile through St. Peter's Square and was very present in the moment after being in the hospital for so long, 5 weeks, and near death several times. And so they were stunned to hear the news on Monday, the day after Easter, that he had passed. But you also hear people talking about what we've been discussing, Chesley, how he was a pope of the people, how he really championed the poor, those who felt disenfranchised by the church, how he really made an effort to bring the church to a level where everyone would feel comfortable and be involved. And that's why many of them say it's very important to be here.
Yeah, we'll start to turn our attention more toward the selection of a new pope. Jay, you've been there the last 2 times this took place. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a very interesting process, all done in secrecy, and in the Sistine Chapel, the door's locked. It's just behind us here at the Vatican, and so they will go in, they'll have discussions early, and they're already discussing at least a direction that they hope to see the vote go. But then they'll begin to take the votes, and they'll continue to vote in secrecy until 2/3 agree on the new pope, and that's when we'll see the white smoke. Otherwise, it will be black smoke and no decision. So, yeah, that white smoke will appear, and then the new pope will appear on the balcony here and begin his term as the man who sits in the chair of St. Peter. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out, and I think it's really going to be telling as to who they select, because what we had here was the first pope from Latin America, the first Jesuit. So what may be next, and we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, Jay Gray in the Vatican. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay. We appreciate your insight. All right, so on to some other stories that we're tracking on this Thursday. Atlanta police is offering a $5,000 reward to help identify 2 suspects accused of shooting an Uber driver. Police say they pointed a gun at a 30-year-old driver at a gas station in February. A fight broke out and shots were fired. The driver was hit in the leg and was taken to Grady Hospital. Call police if you can recognize these men right there in that video. All right, South Fulton mayor will not seek another election. He made his announcement during the recent city council meeting. In recent weeks, he's been under scrutiny from the city council over his spending allegations. During his final 7 months in office, he says he will be less available because his salary represents that of a part-time mayor. The NFL draft kicks off tonight. Yep, it'll be taking place in Green Bay, Wisconsin, just outside the historic Lambeau Field. The Falcons have 5 overall picks. The first pick will come tonight at number 15. Another pick will come tomorrow, and then 3 selections will be made in the final round on Saturday. What will the Hawks do? We will see. All right, this morning we're cutting through some of the static of the tariffs and trades and zooming in on the really important matters. We're talking about your wallet, folks. 2 of 11Alive's investigators are on this story, digging into the story that could hit you where it hurts, right there in the checkout line. Let's toss it over to Liza Lucas now, who is live with us this morning. Good morning to you, Liza.
Good morning, Chesley. Okay, we're talking about some important questions, right? Is your grocery bill going up? Did that must-have item that you've been eyeing or really need for your household, did it jump in price? What do these tariffs really mean for the average person, people like you and me, families, those on a budget or living from paycheck to paycheck? Well, there are a flood of headlines out there. We all know it. Tons of predictions, but what's happening in reality? That's what we wanted to find out. Are you paying more at the store? So off Rebecca Lindstrom and I went to the shelves with a very simple mission, Chesley. Are the everyday things you buy, like kitchenware and clothes and electronics, are they starting to cost more because of the shifting trade policy?
All right, so how do you measure something like this, Liza?
Well, we kept it very real, very simple. Like an everyday shopper, we picked out everyday items, things that you and I would need or want. And then we went to the labels and we checked those labels just like any other shopper would. We then tracked where they were made and, more importantly, what they cost before the tariffs kicked in. Then we went back shopping this week for more price checks to check out if there were any changes.
All right, so what did you find out? Are the prices actually going up?
Well, I'm curious to see what you think, but of course, we have about 100 items that we're tracking right here. We've been tracking those items for weeks, and while some of those prices have not budged yet, we are starting to see prices creep up online in particular. And I don't think we're done yet, because we know that Shein and Temu, very popular sites, they've already come out. They've said that U.S. customers are going to start seeing the increases really come into play starting Friday, tomorrow, due to these rate changes. So this is just the beginning of our investigation. We're kind of laying the groundwork for you here, and we're going to continue to bring you updates as we continue to price check.
So, all right, it's two of you. One took maybe electronics, somebody else took food. How did you split it up? What did you do?
Oh, man. I mean, first of all, Rebecca Lindstrom is a shopper. I think I did 30 items to start. Rebecca found like 75, but we did everything from TV to T-shirts to socks. And we really tried to stick to things that we knew would be on shelves for several weeks, so not the seasonal items necessarily. And we were surprised how easily we really found items from 30 countries. Of course, we also really zoned in on China because that's where the bulk of the trade war is right now. But we're also not going to do this alone. We want to hear from our viewers, right? Chesley, I'm going to talk to you after and see what you're seeing. What products are you watching? What's hitting your wallet the hardest? What are you concerned about? Of course, we're going to deep dive into this further throughout the course of this process, and we're going to bring you our first draft, our look tonight.
You're catching me at the right time. I'm in the market for some electronics, so yeah, I'll be talking to you after this.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks a lot, Liza. You can check out this investigation, this investigative report, right here tonight on 11Alive, and we'll be streaming it right here on 11Live Plus. Make sure you check it out. Plenty more stories for you right after the break. This is 11Live Plus, and this is The Take. All right, welcome back to the show. Consumers are adapting to artificial intelligence faster than businesses are, and we're learning that some folks are falling into four personas, which are shaping the future of how we interact with technology. Joining us now is Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist of Salesforce. And Vala, I got to say, I've never talked to a digital evangelist before, so I'm happy that you're on the show.
Good morning, Chesley. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. Hey, this is an explosion, right? We've never seen this before, obviously, artificial intelligence. Are you surprised at how fast and robust this has become?
You know, I'm very surprised at the rate of adoption, but it's pleasantly surprised, because who doesn't want to have a digital assistant to help them make better, more informed decisions, make life easier? And so in our research, as you mentioned, we found four personas: the smarty pants, who's looking for more informed decisions; the life hacker, who's looking for efficiencies; the minimalist, who wants to simplify their life; and the tastemaker, who's looking for very tailored experiences.
I may fit into all four of those, maybe. I do understand that AI is meant to take care of the simple tasks for us, right? And I know at first I was kind of fearful of this, like, what, they're taking over our lives, taking our job, that kind of thing. Where do you see this going in 5 to 10 years down the line?
Wow, in 5 years, I suspect all of us will have a digital agent that we're going to lean into for shopping experiences, for finding jobs, for health and wealth advice and guidance. You know, it's going to be like Iron Man and Jarvis, one of my favorite movies, to be able to, speak into your phone or a device or an application and just, make all experiences a little bit better for you.
What do you say to people who are fearful of this change, right, who have not accepted it?
Yeah, our surveys found that, if you're a Gen X like myself, you may be less inclined to adopt new technology. Generally speaking, 70% of the Gen Z that made up our survey results are favorable in terms of using digital assistants to help them across a variety of experiences. Get in the game. I would say I've been in tech for 30 years, Chesley, and this is the most important, most impactful technology of my lifetime. I think AI is electricity for the 21st century. So if you avoid it, you're going to find yourself in the dark in terms of finding joyful, beautiful experiences.
Yeah, I think about my mother oftentimes when we have cell phone. She's in her 80s, and how she has now adapted to texting and, just to be able to speak to her grandkids. That's the way she's going to have to communicate, or they'd leave her in the dust, as you said. Now, I understand you have a little quiz which helps people figure out which group they fall in. What's your group?
So I took the quiz. I fell into the Smarty Pants, which was the largest category. People that are, again, looking to break down complex tasks and make faster, better decisions. I encourage your audience to go to our Salesforce news site. You can take the quiz and find out which persona. Also a reminder for businesses as they're building their artificial intelligence capabilities. Consumers have always been behind revolutions, whether it's the mobile revolution, the social revolution, and they're going to be driving the AI revolution. So it's important for businesses to understand there are a variety of personas, and each persona has a different need, and it's important for companies to understand that.
Now, I got to ask you, Mr. Offshore, do you think you're talking to me, or do you think you're talking to artificial intelligence right now?
Chesley, you're way too charming and handsome for me to think it's anyone but you.
So it hasn't caught up yet, right? It hasn't caught up yet. So I still get to keep my job. Bala Offshore, I really appreciate you joining us. My first time talking to a digital evangelist, and you did great. You did great, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Back with my final take right after this. All right, we are looking at more rain, folks, unfortunately. Now, I'm not saying we can't use it, right? We had a little bit of a deficit before we started this pattern, and so hopefully we'll catch it up. We were down a little over a half an inch of rainfall, so I do think we'll catch up after this is all said and done. When will it end? Well, you look at the 7-day outlook, it shows that we're going to hold on to the threat for showers this afternoon, Friday afternoon as well, but then it starts to lower as we head into the weekend, just in time for your weekend. 79 degrees for the afternoon high today. We're looking at 81 for the high on Friday, 83 degrees on Saturday. See, as the chance for rain lowers, the temperature starts to go up. Got a front coming through on Saturday. We'll lower that temperature just a little bit as we head into Sunday and Monday. We'll be at 78 degrees. And then we quickly rebound. For those of you who like the above average temperatures for this time of year, 83 degrees on Tuesday. Wednesday, we're looking at 85 with a 20% chance for rain with the next system that's going to come right on in. So keep in mind our average this time of year would be right around 75 or 76 degrees. All right, before we go, my final take. Did you ever think a pro wrestler could be bullied? Well, that's what WWE champion John Cena said happened to him, forcing him to get a hair transplant. Just after winning his record-breaking 17th WWE championship at WrestleMania this past weekend, John Cena admitted to going through a hair transplant surgery. The pro wrestler said fan chants made him feel small and it embarrassed him. He said recently in an interview, and I quote, "Thank you for bullying me into getting surgery to replace my hair. This is how far you push me." Shout out to John Cena for being transparent about his feelings and reminding us that athletes, even pro wrestlers, have vulnerabilities. Yeah, let's face it, as fans, we can be very cruel, especially on social media. So take it easy, folks. Yeah, alopecia, male alopecia is the most common form of hair loss, affecting 30 to 50% of men at age 50. So it's out of his control. So the next time you make your comments, know that people have feelings, folks, even pro wrestlers. And I bet you wouldn't say it to his face. That's all we got for you. Have a great day and try to encourage somebody instead of talking about their hair loss.